Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. For the sake of time, we'll go ahead and get started. We are recording this webinar, so this will be available to you later on our NMAI Fellowships webpage. We'll get it posted in just a couple weeks, so you can always come back and refer to this later. For those who may have missed this webinar live, they'll also be able to access it then too. So again, welcome. This is the information webinar for the Native American Collections Fellowship. We're delighted that you all have joined us and are interested in learning more about this new program at the National Museum of the American Indian. My name is Kendall Trahane. I am a member of the Ho-Chunk Nation of Wisconsin, and I'm also our Fellowship Program Administrator at the museum. I will be taking you through the webinar today. So please feel free to reach out afterward or during the webinar with any questions. I'll go over that more on the next slide. But before I go too far, I also want to introduce you to my colleague, Camila Rivera, who is also on the webinar today. She is supporting me with the technical side of the webinar and will be assisting with the Q&A portion. So really quickly, just to share a little more about the webinar format, do a little housekeeping at the beginning. This is a Zoom webinar. That does mean that all attendees are automatically muted throughout the webinar. However, if you do have questions, we do encourage you to ask those throughout the time we have together. Please go ahead and use that Q&A button that you see on your screen. It should look as pictured on the slide. You can go ahead and type that and enter your question. Just a note that questions do not become immediately visible to all attendees, but please be assured that your host, myself, and Camila are able to see them, and as questions get answered, we can publish them and their answers visible to the audience. If you do have any issues typing into the Q&A box, we will also have some time at the end dedicated for questions and answers. At that point, if you're still having issues using the Q&A feature, you can also use the raised hand option, which is right next to it. If you do that, we will go ahead and unmute you so that you can ask your question. And please just note that if we do unmute you, all attendees will be able to hear and see you once that happens. So just to give you a brief overview of what we'll go through today, I'll start off with a little bit of welcome and introduction to National Museum of American Indian. We know that some of you may be familiar with our institution, some of you may not be, so we just want to give you a general overview there. Then we'll go into a little more overview of this specific fellowship program. After that, we'll spend some time going through the online application just so you can sort of see how it looks, see a little more of the navigation and particular areas that you might need to focus on within the online application system. And then we'll conclude with time for Q&A. So first, to give you a little bit of background and history, National Museum of the American Indian is part of the Smithsonian Institution. The Smithsonian is considered the world's largest museum, education, and research complex. It was established back in 1846 and now consists of 21 different museums, plus our National Zoo, 9 research centers, and a recording label, and an additional 21 branch libraries. We are staffed by approximately 6,700 employees, and we do have over 13,000 volunteers that also support all of those different museums and research centers. Every year we host approximately, Smithsonian as a whole hosts approximately 3,000 interns, fellows, and researchers. We are considered a quasi-federal agency, meaning that we receive funding from both the federal government and private grant and individual donor funds. And we do also have an additional 215 affiliated museums that are located throughout the US. The museum pictured on the screen is actually one of the Smithsonian museums that is located in New York City, the Cooper Hewitt Design Museum. And that is just to illustrate that Smithsonian does have museums outside of the Washington, D.C. area, and we like to recognize those as part of our whole Smithsonian institution as well. The National Museum of the American Indian was established in 1989 through an act of Congress called the National Museum of the American Indian Act. During that process, collections were transferred from an institution called the Museum of the American Indian. The originating collector, George Gustav High, was the one who managed that particular collecting institution. And upon his or after he passed away, it was managed by the High Foundation. Through the NMAI Act, all of those collections were transferred into Smithsonian's holdings and moved from New York to the Smithsonian. The NMAI now consists of 3 facilities. 2 of them are public-facing, hosting a lot of our exhibitions. That's the George Gustav High Center. It's located in New York. That particular facility opened in 1994. We also have our flagship museum located on the National Mall that opened in DC in 2004. So we celebrated our 20th anniversary on the mall this year, which was really exciting. And then of particular interest to you on the call today is our Cultural Resources Center. That is where the majority of our collections are housed. It is located in Suitland, Maryland, which is about a 20-minute drive outside of downtown DC. And that particular facility opened in 1999 and has been housing cultural belongings ever since. Really important to our work at NMAI is our mission and vision statement, so I wanted to share those with you as well. Our mission statement is in partnership with Native peoples and their allies. The NMAI fosters a richer shared human experience through a more informed understanding of Native peoples. And coupled with that is our vision statement, which is equity and social justice for Native peoples of the Western Hemisphere. Within the NMAI, there are a series of different collections, and so I wanted to make sure that folks were aware of all the different collections resources available to them. Many people think of our object collections, which is indeed very important. It does consist of over 840,000 different items represented by over 270,000 catalog numbers in various areas, including archaeology, ethnology, and modern and contemporary arts. However, we do have a lot of holdings in our photographic and paper archives, which are equally important. The photographic archives has approximately 324,000 images that document nearly all aspects of Native American life from mid-19th century to the present. Another important thing about our photographic archives is it does also include NMAI events, exhibits, staff, research, behind the scenes work, things like that. Within our paper archives, we have about 1,522 linear feet of records that date from the 1860s, when George Gustav High began his collecting. We also hold the collections of the National Congress of American Indians. I will also note that we are still an active collecting institution. However, our focus has shifted to contemporary, modern and contemporary arts, works such as those of National Congress of American Indians, work of Native artists and activists in the contemporary setting. So we are still actively collecting those contemporary pieces. Lastly, we also have our Vine Deloria Junior Library, which would be helpful to researchers. It does have over 40,000 different volumes of books, periodicals, microfilm, and media. This is also where we house our growing rare book section and our Native American artist files. That was a little background about National Museum of American Indian. I want to use this next time to dive a little deeper into the Collections Fellowship, which you are here for learning about today. So this program specifically increases or was designed to increase opportunities for community and academic-based scholars to engage with collections and conduct research at the NMAI. This is considered a one-year fellowship program, of which at least 8 months of those must be on-site. There is various financial support associated with this program in the form of various stipends and additional allowances. There is a base stipend of $57,000 that is intended to support living expenses throughout the course of the fellowship year. Additionally, fellows have access to $4,000 in research allowance. That is additional funding that is intended to support any sort of research-related activities. So that could include things like equipment, supplies, travel, photocopying expenses, things like that, conference travel, if you're going to a particular conference. So that is what that research allowance is intended for. Because this is a year-long fellowship, we do also have additional health insurance allowance available up to $5,000 for the year to assist with healthcare costs during that time period. And then there is also a travel allowance. And this is the cost of round-trip travel from wherever your home institution is to Smithsonian. And so that is something that sort of varies depending on where the fellow is coming from. That is built into this program as well. There are additional professional development and networking opportunities also tied in with this particular program that might look and feel a little different than some of the other fellowship programs at the Smithsonian Institution. So I'll go over that in a little more detail on the next slide. Built into this particular fellowship is a 6-week virtual phase that starts when the fellowship period begins at the beginning of August. So during that time, fellows don't need to be on site yet. This is a 6-week virtual phase, and that is really dedicated to professional development to build the skills and capacity of the fellow to be able to do their research for the remainder of the year. The way that this looks is that it is really designed to assist researchers who are visiting the institution, provide them with more information specific about NMAI and Smithsonian's collections, and to meet and network with different Smithsonian staff prior to them coming on site. So that is what the virtual phase is intended to do, is sort of provide more access, more insight into the collections, and also to connect with not just staff, but also the other fellows who are in this program and who are in another fellowship program called our Native Arts Fellowship. So to build a cohort of fellows in that sense as well. After that, fellows can start coming on site to do their research activities. And so that on-site time can begin anytime after the virtual phase ends in mid-September. And then that is followed by, we do have some additional post-fellowship support available as well once that fellowship period ends. And that is really dedicated to conducting community-based work to bring the experience and information gained during your fellowship back to your community. As far as eligibility and sort of who is a good fit for this particular fellowship opportunity, again, just reminding that this fellowship is intended to support those sort of community-focused researchers who are engaged with Native communities and perform research in ways that benefit Native peoples. Keeping that in mind, people that would be best suited for this particular program would be those that have a research project that is beneficial to a community that has collections housed at the museum. Individuals who might consider themselves early in their research or in their scholarly careers, or maybe those who have conducted previous work but really feel that they could benefit from this additional guidance and mentorship that this program provides. Individuals who engage with Native communities or have a history of working with Native peoples, and then those who are also willing to relocate to the Washington, D.C. area for that minimum period of time of 8 months to conduct their research. I do want to talk a little bit about some of the major application components. I want to talk about them here just so you can get a sense of what they look like before we go into the online system a little later on in this webinar. So some of the things that you can expect to see in the application are, of course, information asking for your contact information and additional travel information should you get selected for this fellowship. Also very important is a proposed project or research title, and then also your research proposal. We have expanded the word limit this year on the proposal to 2,500 words or less. Within this proposal, you should be including the bullet points listed on here. So one is a description of the research that you're planning to undertake at NMAI and the different research methods that you might utilize. Also, the importance of your research, not just for your own personal goals and motivations, but also to any Indigenous communities that might be impacted or affected by the work. A justification for conducting your research at Smithsonian and utilization of the resources. Essentially, what that means is just why NMAI? What is it that NMAI has in its collections holdings? What are the cultural belongings that you're interested in looking at that are here at NMAI that you might not be able to access elsewhere? Essentially, why NMAI? Why now? Also, please include any current consultation or collaboration that you might be doing with Indigenous communities, and also any non-NMAI or non-Smithsonian collections that you might be interested in visiting during the fellowship. This could include things like the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History or the National Anthropological Archives, which are also affiliated with Smithsonian. Those are often collections that we see researchers who are interested in NMAI might be interested in looking at those collections too, as they do hold many Native American items as well. And then lastly, please include 2 NMAI research staff that you are interested in receiving advising from and why you chose those individuals. This is helpful for us in thinking through, the staff interests that we have here at the museum and help us kind of think through who might be a good fit for your work. Please also include a timeline for conducting your research activities and also a plan for your research allowance. So when you see that budget plan section noted there, that's not intended for all of your fellowship stipend or monies. That is just for the $4,000 research allowance. And again, that research allowance is intended to support any additional research-related expenses you might incur. Please also include a resume or CV. Really important to note here is to highlight any work or collaborations that you have with Indigenous communities or relevant stakeholders. And then please also include 2 reference letters. One should be from an individual who can speak to your ability to conduct the research. And then the other letter should be from a tribal community member or tribal community you serve who can speak to the importance of the work that you're conducting. And then I also want to share that you may have more than one such letter. So please feel free, if you have more than one letter, you can include that as well. Lastly, some of the additional sections you'll see in the application relate to academic transcripts and then additional research and planning. The academic transcripts are really important for any applicants who might be in need of visa sponsorship. Smithsonian sponsors fellows through the J-1 visa program, and it is actually a requirement of that visa program to include those academic transcripts. So please make sure if you are in need of visa sponsorship to upload academic transcripts. Within that, unofficial transcripts are always encouraged, and we know that those are often easier to obtain, so feel free to include unofficial versions. And then I do always like to note for our applicants who are applying from Canada, those that are eligible under the J Treaty should not need visa sponsorship. So just please note that if you are First Nations Canadian. Additional research and planning questions I'll show you where these are in the online version, but this just relates to any scheduling concerns or obligations you might have during the fellowship period. Please note that it doesn't preclude you from applying to the program or receiving an award. This is just more for our internal planning purposes and preparing for fellows to come on site. And then there are some additional research-specific questions that are in actually many of the Smithsonian Fellowship applications. We do have an extensive review process. And so I do just want to also highlight some of the selection criteria that reviewers will be considering as they're going through applications. One, of course, is applicant eligibility. Do you fall into the eligibility standards for this program? Are you a good fit? Another is use of NMAI resources. How much are you utilizing different resources here at NMAI? Everything from collections to staff to other resources at Smithsonian. Or third, I guess, is feasibility of the proposed research. Can you feasibly conduct the work within the time period that you've proposed? And then lastly, the impact or benefit to Native communities. I just wanted to share a few tips for application submission, especially as you're in that phase now of thinking through, your application, you're getting ready to submit and apply. First of all, of course, just make sure you take time to prepare your application. Within that, we definitely recommend doing some initial research into NMAI and Smithsonian online collections. We do have some links available. I'll make sure I share those with you when we get to the online walkthrough portion. But we do have links available so you can do some initial preliminary searching of the NMAI and Smithsonian online collections. So definitely take a look at that. We do not have everything available online yet, so you can always submit a request for a collections report, and I can point that out to you as well. Please also make sure you're looking at our staff list and just seeing who on staff might be of interest to you that you might like to connect with or who aligns with your research interests, and we can share that link as well. Of course, address each proposal prompt. So again, remember all of the things that we highlighted that should be included in your research proposal. Make sure you're addressing each section. Each application is read by a team of reviewers. Some may or may not be as familiar with your work or with your particular area of interest. So just please make sure to address each proposal prompt as clearly as you can. Also, please we do encourage for this particular program, this has shifted a little bit from last year, but we do encourage you to reach out to any potential advisors that you might be interested in working with at NMAI. The main reason we encourage this is because it's mostly helpful in understanding if that person might be the best fit for your research interests. They might also be able to recommend other staff who could be a better fit. And so that kind of helps with that section of which staff you might be interested in receiving advising from. Again, this is encouraged, it's not required. So if you don't have the time to reach out, that is perfectly fine. But we encourage it because it can be helpful in thinking through that particular section. And then do plan to submit early. We always say this just because we know unexpected things come up in our personal and professional lives. So this just builds in a little wiggle room in case any of those unexpected delays occur. So of course, we know most of our applications come in the day that the deadline happens, and we absolutely understand that. But it's always good to try to plan to submit early if you can. Within that, also proactively reach out to your reference letter writers. There is a bit of time after the deadline where reference letter writers can continue to submit their references. But we always want to make sure that that's not a barrier to us being able to review your application. So please make sure you reach out to those reference letter writers, let them know that that this is a requirement of the program, that they need to upload those, and I can go into that in a little more detail when we do the online walkthrough. And then last but not least, if you run into any issues, technology-wise or other, please feel free to reach out to myself or Camila with any questions, and I'll have our contact information posted towards the end of this PowerPoint. As far as accessing the online application, and Camila can drop these links into the chat, but there's two ways you can access the online form. One is the direct link to our Smithsonian Online Academic Appointment system, which is called SOLAA for short. That is the direct link. It houses all of the applications for all of Smithsonian internships and fellowship programs. So it is a Smithsonian-wide system that we use. Alternatively, we also have this link available on the NMAI website. So if you forget this direct link, you're wondering where to find the online application, you can always go to our fellowship webpage, which is listed on the screen and which Camila dropped in the chat. Scroll to the Native American Collections Fellowship opportunity, expand the option for application and selection process, and then you'll see the link to the SOLAA system. Once you access the online application, it will ask you to create an account or login. If you previously submitted an application with us before, whether that's for an internship program or a different fellowship program, you can use your previous credentials to log in. If you're brand new, go ahead and create an account. This is really important because it does often take applicants at least several days to sort of work on their online application, upload the different pieces. So you'll want to make sure that you can save, get more stuff together, log back in, and continue working. The next step is to find the program that you wish to apply for, which I'll show you how to do that using the Start Your Application link at the top of the page. Then you simply search for the program that you wish to apply for and click Apply Now. So for this program, this is what it'll look like once we get to that online portion. As far as additional tips for submission, just make sure you fill out anything with an asterisk. That information is required by our Central Smithsonian Office of Fellowships. Another tip that you can do is as you're browsing through the different programs available, you can check the details or special instructions section of the application. That will give you, or that will tell you sort of at a high level view, everything that is required for that particular application. For the Native American Collections Fellowship, you can also go directly to our program section on our webpage, and that will tell you exactly what you need for us to consider your application complete. Most of this information is going to be uploaded into the materials section of the online application, so I'll make sure to point that out in just a little bit. So with that, I am going to stop sharing the PowerPoint and I will transition us over to the online application system. All right, so I wanted to show you just really quickly where you can find this on the NMAI website. Our website is americanindian.si.edu. This is the home landing page. The way that you can find the fellowship information is in the About section of this page. I know it's not super intuitive, so that's why I wanted to point it out. But once you click About, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see a couple different options, including our internships. But go ahead and click on Fellowships. This will take you to our fellowship page. On here, you can also find me and Camila's contact information. Should you need to reach out to us, it's located right on the right-hand side. Before I go into the Collections Fellowship, I just wanted to point out a couple other features of this page, which is, of course, you can see all of the different fellowship programs that we manage in case there might be others of interest to you. Also, our central fellowship programs. These are the ones that are all managed by the Central Smithsonian Office, but we do often host fellows through the Smithsonian Institution Fellowship Program and the Smithsonian Artist Research Fellowship. Last but not least, there is an FAQ page or FAQ section. So please make sure to come here. If there's a lot of commonly asked questions in this section, and if you don't see what you're looking for, you can always go ahead and reach out to me and Camila. So I will take us back up to the Native American Collections Fellowship. In here, you can expand any of these sections to give yourself a refresher on, eligibility, stipends, our contact information, things like that. Within here, I do want to point out we do have an additional resources section, which I mentioned, and this will take you to other links on our website or at Smithsonian so that you can do different things like collection searches, looking at our research and curatorial staff, Smithsonian-wide collections, libraries, and archives, things like that. But we are interested in the online application, so I'm going to expand application and selection process. And you can see right here, here is that link to the Smithsonian Online Academic Appointment System. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it'll open our public SOLAA page. So of course, this is where you would log in or create an account. I want to show you first, though, if you do want to just browse through our programs, you can, of course, hit Explore Opportunities. That takes you to the Central Fellowship page or Central Smithsonian Office of Fellowships page. You can also click Start Your Application, and that'll let you sort of browse the currently active programs. So if you know exactly what program name you're applying to, you can go ahead and type that in there. If you're not quite sure, the best way to find us is this dropdown. It is organized alphabetically by acronym. So you'll want to search for NMAI, and there we come up. Make sure you're looking for currently active programs and go ahead and hit search. You can see we have several active programs right now, including our internship program and our Native Arts Fellowship. But we know that we're applying for the Native American Collections Fellowship. So again, from here, you can hit details. It pulls up this little window that tells you a little more about everything that your application will need for this particular program. You can click Show More, and it'll tell you about all the different application materials that you will need to upload. Things like that CV, budget request, research proposal, all of those things are in here. This is where you can also get a glance at some of those additional research-related questions, which are in many of the Smithsonian Fellowship applications. So I'm going to go ahead, close out of that, and hit Apply Now. You'll get this little pop-up that just says, are you sure you want to apply? Go ahead and click OK, and then it'll ask you to log in. So I'm going to pause my sharing for just a second while I get myself logged in to the system. All right, so hopefully you can see now that we're inside the application. Here again are that special instructions that just gives you a little more information about everything you need to include. Again, make sure you fill out everything with an asterisk. That information is required for our Central Office of Fellowships. From here, you can use the Next button to move to the next screen. See, I'm having just a few issues making sure that the screen is showing, but I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And it'll take you to, hopefully you can see it's advanced us now to the next page, which is current affiliation. You can also navigate through the application using these different chevrons. So if you want to hop around to different things, you can always use these. I'm going to go ahead, skip academic history because I want to show you program choices, materials, and references. So we'll go first to program choices. All right, so now we've advanced to program choices. This is where you'll want to make sure you fill out your travel information. So where you're relocating from to a Smithsonian facility, you'll want to put Washington, D.C. or NMAI or Cultural Resources Center in here. Any of those would work. Put also your research title in here and any tribal affiliations you might have. All right, I'll take us to materials because this is where you're going to be uploading the majority of your application information. In the materials section, here it does explain a little more, everything that you need. This is also on our fellowship page, and we've talked about this in the webinar. But if you scroll down, this is where you can see you can upload the application materials. Any of the files on this right-hand side are supported. You can upload any files with those extensions. As you go to upload your materials, you have the option to tell the system essentially what you're uploading. So say I'm ready to upload my research proposal. You want to make sure you have that option selected. Then hit choose file. You'll get your pop-up window. I already have some pre-selected a folder here that has everything that I need to upload. So I'm going to hit proposal and hit upload. Once you do that, you should get a notification that your information was uploaded successfully. And at that point, if you scroll down, you can see everything that you've uploaded. When you uploaded it, you can download it again, or you can always delete it if you realize, oh my gosh, I uploaded the wrong thing, or maybe you revised it and you need to upload a different version. So you can manage that through here. We'll go to references really quickly next. From the references section, it's going to look blank when you first look at it. From here, you're going to add new reference details. Then this additional pop-up will appear. This is where you want to put in your reference information. So looks like I had already pre-filled some information in here, my work address, my phone number. So I guess if you've worked in here previously, some information may auto-populate. So just make sure that the information is still correct. Then you go ahead and click save. Oops. And already I'm getting an error message. So I'm just going to take this phone number out for now because it's not required. All right. So once your reference information is saved, it'll appear down here. What's really important for you is to make sure you hit the email referee button. Essentially what the system is going to do is once you hit this button, it's going to send an email to the individual that you've indicated to that email address with a link for them to upload their reference letter. So that's really important is they need that link to be able to upload their letter. So go ahead, click email referee. You'll get a pop-up that says, are you sure? Hit OK. And now I can see, okay, this person was emailed on this date. I can also see from here that they haven't uploaded their reference yet, which makes sense because that email was just sent. But here you can check in and just see, have your referees submitted their reference letter yet? Finally, from the questions page, again, that's where you'll find some additional questions we ask you to fill out. If you have any scheduling concerns or obligations during the fellowship period, if you've applied to this program in previous years, we'd be interested in knowing that too. If you have, it doesn't preclude you from applying. We're just curious, if this is something you've applied to before, and then of course those specific research-related questions. One last thing is, if once you're ready to save, go ahead and save. It'll let you know that you have saved successfully. And then if you ever do need to log out, log back in, when you log back in, it'll take you to this My Applications section of the SOLAA page. So in here, I can see, okay, I've started this application for the Native American Collections Fellowship. I can continue to work on it by hitting the edit button. If you want to contact Camila and I through here, you can also hit email program coordinator. That'll actually send us an email if you have any questions. And of course, you can always delete or copy your application as well. So I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to our PowerPoint. So again, before we close out and open up for Q&A, I just want to again remind you of important dates. So the deadline for this program is January 31st of next year. So just a month and a half away. Again, the fellowship period, that full year, goes from August 1st of 2025 to July 31st of 2026. Again, that virtual onboarding period is from August 1st to mid-September. And then on-site research can occur anywhere from any time between mid-September through end of July 2026. Not on the slide, but I do want to note it. The review and selection process does take several months, so please be patient with us as we are spending time going through the applications, reading thoroughly, making sure we get, we know you spend a lot of time on applications. We want to make sure we're reading all of the details. With that said, we do anticipate that you should hear from us no later than 2 months before the fellowship start date. If you don't hear anything from us by then, please do reach out to us. It is entirely possible that we might have spelled the email address incorrectly, or something got lost in the shuffle. Maybe your contact information changed. Please do reach out to us if you haven't heard from us 2 months before the fellowship start date. Again, I shared with you some of those additional resources that you can find on our webpage under the additional resources section of the fellowship opportunity. And then some final tips, as you're searching Smithsonian online collections, it does search through all 21 different Smithsonian museums. So you can always filter by catalog record source if you're looking at object collections, archival repository if you're looking at archival material, and library location if you're looking at libraries. Camila is also going to drop our Smithsonian Opportunities for Research and Study, or the SOARS guide, into the chat. This is a guide that lists all research staff at all Smithsonian museums. I do think it's great to look at that particular guide because it does have some additional staff at NMAI that aren't listed on our own research page, such as our conservation staff members who can also serve as advisors. So please make sure you also look at that guide too, especially as you're thinking through sort of which NMAI staff you might be interested in getting advising from. And of course, I know I've reiterated this before, but if you're looking for something, you can't find an answer, you can't find it, please go ahead and reach out to us and we can help steer you in the right direction. So here's our contact information. Our office phones, and then we also manage this joint NMAI fellowships email. So that's the best way to get in touch with us as we sort of tag team in answering questions there.